What's going on, y'all? I'm going to talk about a little bit of utilitarianism, man. Um, Let me get this right. Good education. No, I'm going to put activism. Hold on. One last time. Now, let's get right to it. Yes, I found this off of Investopedia.com. This is another piece of it. I done explained all my videos and streams about utilitarianism. I'm going to break this one down. I'm going to give you the understanding of it. Utilitarianism is a tradition of ethical philosophy that is associated with Jeremy Bentham, known as Jeremy B., and John Stuart Mill, two late 18th and 19th century British philosophers, economists, and political thinkers. Utilitarianism holds that an action is right if it tends to promote happiness and wrong if it tends to produce sadness, or the reverse of happiness, not just the happiness of the actor, but that of everyone affected by it. But at work you display utilitarianism when you take actions to ensure that the office is a positive environment for your co-workers to be in, and then make it so for yourself. And here's the three generally accepted axioms of utilitarianism state that here's what it says. The three general accepted axioms of utilitarianism state that here's number one: pleasure or happiness is the only thing that has intrinsic value. And here's the second one: actions are right if they promote happiness and wrong if they promote unhappiness. And the last one: everyone's happiness counts equally. This is talking about utilitarianism type society stuff right here. I talked about the total. And we're going to mention the takeaways from it. Okay. John Stuart Mill had many years to absorb, reflect on Jeremy Bentham's thoughts on utilitarianism by the time he published his own work. Utilitarianism in 1863, the key passage from this book, the creed which accepts as the foundation of morals utility, or the great happiness principle, holds that the actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness. By happiness is an intent pleasure and the absence of pain, by unhappiness pain and privation of pleasure. And let's read the key takeaways. Utilitarianism is a theory of morality which advocates action that fosters happiness and opposes actions that causes unhappiness. Utilitarianism promotes the greatest amount of the good for the greatest number of people. That's what it means. That's the takeaway. And then here's the third takeaway. When used in social political construct, it says construct, means to build. Let's read that again. When used in social political construct, utilitarian ethics aims for the betterment of society as a whole. And here's the last part. Utilitarianism is a reason-based approach to determine right and wrong, but it has limitations. Facts. I discussed that with the pros and cons of utilitarianism in my first video as a pre-record, and then I think I did a stream, a redo. You can check those out. Okay, utilitarianism relevance in a political economy. In liberal democracies through the centuries, the progenitors of utilitarianism spawned variants and extensions of its core principles. Some of the questions they wrestled with, including what constitutes the greatest amount of good, how is happiness defined, how is justice accommodated. In today's Western democracies, policymakers are generally proponents of free markets, and some of the base level um, of government's interference in the private lives of citizens, so to assure safety and security. And although appropriated amount of the regulation and laws will always be a subject of debate, political and economic policies are geared primarily toward fostering as much as well-being for as many people as possible, or at least they should be. Whether there are disadvantaged groups who suffered income inequality or other negative consequences because of utilitarian based policy or action. Most politicians would try to find a remedy. That's what it says on the economy. And here's in business commerce. In business commerce, utilitarianism holds that the most ethical choice is one that will produce the greatest good for the greatest number. As such, it's the only moral framework that can justify military force or war. Moreover, utilitarianism is the most common approach to business ethics because of the way that it accounts for costs and benefits. See, talks about business and commerce and money. But the theory asserts that there's are two types of utilitarian ethics practiced in the business world: rule and act utilitarianism. I talked about this in recent streams and videos and show you, and I think I got it on paper. I'm not sure. I think I got it somewhere. Hold on. I'll read this right now. And let's see the rule and act, because I got this up here. Okay. And let's read that again. And it says rule and act, right? Rule is a form of utilitarianism that says an action is right as it conforms to a rule that leads to the greatest good, or that of the righteous. The rightness or wrongness of a particular action is a function of the rule of which is an instance. That's rule utilitarianism. Act is very similar to it. So I'm gonna find the link that I mentioned in my previous philosophy basics. Let's read this again. We're gonna read this off. You're gonna hear me when I got it on the screen. I'm gonna read it on another link. Yeah, I'm gonna read this off to you. Here's act. States that when we face with a choice, we must first consider the likely consequences of potential actions, in particular cases and form from that chooses to do what we believe we will generate the most overall happiness. Act. Utilitarians may follow certain rules of the thumb, heuristics to save time or cost, although if the consequences can be calculated relatively clearly, exactly, and easily, then such as rules of the thumb can be ignored, and the choice treated one on a case by case basis, right? And here's rule utilitarianism on this link. I might have to put this in the chat. Hold on for a minute. I want y'all to read this because I mentioned this in my previous. I'm gonna put this in the chat. I want y'all to know what's going on. Go Professor, salute. I want you to read that. I mentioned this earlier in my what you call it, in my earliest streams and videos. So yeah, I'm reading this part right here. The rule utilitarianism states that when we face with the choice, we must look at the potential rules of action to determine whether the generalized rules produce more happiness than otherwise if it were to be constantly followed. Thus, an action should only be carried out if it follows the rules that morally should be followed at all times. Rule utilitarians may agree that there are some general exception rules that allow the breaking of the other rules if it increases happiness. The exception of self-defense to overcome the general rule never to kill a human. Although critics argued that this is largely just reduced to act utilitarianism, they're very similar. What I just read act and rule earlier a few minutes ago, and I'm gonna put this up and I'm gonna use this later if someone wants to discuss this or not. But I'm reading the defined utilitarian. So yeah, here it is. Okay, we're gonna read it. They got it right here. Rule utilitarianism helps the largest number of people using the fairest methods possible. Exactly. Act utilitarianism makes the most ethical actions possible for the benefit of the people. See, that's act utilitarianism they talking about. Rule makes the methods possible, the fairest methods possible. Excuse me. Let's read. Oh, they got it right here. We just talked about it. Rural utilitarian ethics, and an example of rural utilitarianism in business is tiered pricing for a product or a service for different types of customers. In the airline industry, for an example, many plans offer first business and economic class seats. Customers who fly in the first or business class pay a much higher rate than those economic seats, but they also get more amenities. Simultaneously, people who cannot afford upper class seats benefit from the economic rates. This practice produced the highest good for the greatest number of people, and the airline benefits too. The more expensive the upper class seats help to ease the financial burden that the airline created by making room for the economy class seats. That's rule utilitarian ethics, and here's act utilitarian ethics. And an example of an act utilitarian would be when pharmaceutical companies release drugs that have been governmentally approved, but with known minor side effects. Because of the drug is able to help more people than are bothered by the side effects. Act utilitarianism often demonstrates the concept that ends that justifies the means or it is worth it. And in the corporate workplace, we're going to talk about in the corporate workplace, most companies have a formal or informal code of ethics, which is shaped by their corporate culture, values, and regional laws. Today, having a formalized code of business ethics is more important than ever. For a business to grow, it is not only needed to increase its bottom line, but it must also create a reputation for being a social responsible. Companies also must endeavor to keep their promises and put ethics at least one on par with profits. Consumers are looking for companies that they can trust. Employees work better when there is solid model of ethics in place. On an individual level, if you make morally correct decisions at work, then everyone's happiness will increase. However, if you choose to do something morally wrong, even if legal, then your happiness and that of your colleagues will decrease. And we're going to read about the limitations of utilitarianism, right? So we're going to read that right quick. In the workplace, though, the utilitarian ethics are difficult to achieve, but these ethics, I don't see this. These ethics also can be challenging to maintain in our business culture, where a capitalistic economy often teaches people to focus on themselves at the expense of others. Similarly, monopolistic competition teaches one business to flourish at the expense of others. You hear that? What it says? Monopolistic competition. But if you have capitalistic economy, it takes you by yourself. That's what capitalism is. But some people want to monopolistic. So they're telling you the difference. There is limitations to it. A limitation of utilitarianism is that it tends to create a black and white construct of morality. It means build of morality. It means to build construct of reality. In the utilitarian ethics, there are no shades of gray. Either something is wrong or is it right? And here's another part. Utilitarianism also cannot predict with certainty whether the consequences of our actions will be good or bad, but the results of our actions happen in the future. And it's the last part. Utilitarianism also has a trouble accounting for values like justice, individual rights. For example, says a hospital has 4 people who lives dependent on upon receiving organ transplants, a heart, lungs, a kidney, and a liver. If healthy, a person wanders into the hospital, his organs could be harvested to save 4 lives at the expense of his one life. This would arguably produce the greatest good for the greatest number, but few would consider it an acceptable course of action, let alone an ethical one. So, although utilitarianism is surely reason-based approaching to determine right and wrong, it has obvious limitations. Develop your own financial strategy advisor. Okay. This is a piece of it. Um, of it. And I'm going to go with the utilitarianism.net. I'm going to stop the screen share. Let's go back to StreamYards. Yeah, man, I just want to cover it. And we're going to break down some few things. This is a topic that I want to knock out just to see where I'm at with it. But yeah, man, I'm just going to knock this one out. It may not be fairly long, but the thing about it is I'm just going to just put this up here and do some damage right here. So we're going to get into a lot of stuff. We're going to get into utilitarian thinkers, and we already know what it is. Continue reading instructions of utilitarian. We covered it on the other. There's chapters of it. There's textbook overview. Let's look at other content. We're gonna read some of this because this is some meat here. Utilitarian.net. You can read the rest for yourself. I'm gonna put this in the chat as well. In case you know what I'm reading, because I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna put this in the live stream chat. Okay, yeah. If y'all want the information, I'm just gonna put the links out here. I'm just gonna put this right here. Yeah. So yeah, man. I'm going to knock this one out. Put this one in the back burner, and I'll get this one down. Okay, acting on utilitarianism. Okay, utilitarianism has important implications for how we should think about leading an ethical life, because utilitarianism weighs the well-being of everyone equally. It implies that we should make helping others a very significant part of our lives. But there are many pressing problems in the world today. Unfortunately, because of our resources are scarce, we cannot solve all the world's problems at once. You see, y'all need to hear that again, man. I mean, that's a good meat. Let's read that again. There are many pressing problems in the world today. Unfortunately, because of our resources are scarce, we cannot solve all the world's problems at once. What is more, not always of the helping others are equally effective. According to utilitarianism, we should carefully choose which problems to work on, but what means, based on how we can most improve the lives of everyone, counting equally. This involves taking seriously the question of how we can best use of our time and money to help others. Let me see. A few moral projects appear especially pressing by utilitarian lights, such as fighting extreme poverty, reducing the suffering of animals on the factory farms, and in particular ensuring that the long-term future goes as well as possible. People will exist in the future greatly outnumber those who are alive today, and we may be able to take actions that affect their well-being. Therefore, one key concern for utilitarians is to promote the well-being of not only the current generation but all generations to come. Addressing these problems may involve donating generously to effect charities, choosing your career based on how to most help others, and encouraging other people to do the same. And that's reading Act Utilitarianism. Here's the utilitarian thinkers, philosophers. This is the famous Henry Sidgwick, and there's Harriet Taylor Mill. She could be the daughter of John Stuart Mill, probably. We don't know, probably in the relations. Jeremy B, he's most famous, he's most popular. And there's Massey. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 utilitarian thinkers with some of my philosophers. Then you got Peter Singer. He's one. Peter Singer is a animal lover. A lot of people give him hell. They give him hell. So we already know what time it is. Let's go with utilitarian thinkers. We're gonna address these in a minute. And it goes back to China too. Okay, Massey was first. This is some information that I should have covered a long, long time ago, man. And months ago, I mean. Let's see what's going on in here. I wonder what type of person am I according to your reads. We'll see, Go Professor. I mean, it's very accurate, you know. Okay, utilitarian ideas go back in part of the works of philosophers in ancient China, including Masi, and ancient Greece, including Epicurus. I talked about Epicureanism. I talk about Epicurus. Epicurus is the father of utilitarianism. It talks about the same thing, the greatest number, and all that stuff. It birthed consequentialism. I talked about that in a stream once, and I did a self stream, two parts of that as well with Stoicism. I did that. And let's read further. Utilitarianism was further developed, refined, and promoted into the late 18th and 19th century by the classical utilitarians like Jeremy Bentham, and John Stuart Mill and Henry Sidgwick. See, they're the most popular. But the Matzi guy, he has that mindset. He's a predecessor to utilitarianism. So we're going to get to him in a minute. These articles summarize the lives of ideas of the major utilitarian philosophers for a much more detailed historical account that we can provide on this website. We recommend the book Happiness Philosophers, the Lives and the Works of a Great Utilitarians, and the article The History of Utilitarianism on the Stanford Encyclopedia of the Philosophy. But the Wikipedia also maintains a list of utilitarians. See, these are the books highlighted. So, Masi, better known as Masi or Master Mo, flourished in 83 BCE, and what is now this Tenzhou, Shandong province of China. Likely an artisan by craft, Mo Di attracted many dedicated followers and founded the philosophical school of Moshum during China's warring states, period 475 BCE to 221 BCE, an early predecessor to utilitarianism. They said read more. We're going to read a piece of him. We're going to go back to him. Like other philosophers of his day, including the better known as Confucius of Mo, traveled from state to state to persuade rulers to adopt policies intended to end war, alleviate poverty, install meritocracy, and promote the welfare of all. Moist advocates China's first universalist impartial ethic and had a significant influence on the epistemology and language logic and political theory of early China. Just gonna let it go crazy for a minute. Early China and perhaps the greatest historical significance, they shaped profoundly the philosophical methodology and then the ethics of an early conservationism. Okay, early concept. I won't skip that. I won't skip that. The early works, I won't say early, including the philosophers of Mingzai or Zun, or who those would come to dominate imperial China during its first two millennia. Okay, so he kind of want peace. Okay. That's interesting. They don't talk about him enough. I like this website. It breaks them down. That's a little history on him. I might have to check those books out in the future. Okay, The Philosophy of Mo Di is an article developed and complied by his followers in an anthology called the Masi. The Masi comes to us from a period of extreme violence during which feudal lords fought perpetual wars of aggression for control the part of the world we know as China. For the for the peasant class, life in the warring states was harsh, categorized by regular military conscription, imprisonment by conquering states, and the labor extortion by the nobility fund palaces, display of a music state ceremonies, and aggravant of burials. The Masi is most centrally a moral political treatise opposing such violence and exploitation. It vigorously condemns wasteful luxury, elaborate ceremonies and rituals, and political incompetence, and all forms of aggressive war, advocating the replacement of these harmful practices with those policies which promotes the benefit of all. While the Masi is most concerned with the social political reform, it makes numerous of advances in theoretical philosophy as well. The Mashids were the first in ancient China to engage in the kind of rigorous argumentative philosophy that is in characteristics of contemporary philosophers. Among the developments of the Marcius was the closest ancient predecessor to utilitarianism. They define an ethics centered on taking those actions that the maximum, the benefit of all, where the benefit of all for the Moists is whatever increased political order, material wealth, and population throughout the whole world. Okay. So the Moists are the first introduced sophisticated versions of conceptual engineering resembling the work of contemporary feminist philosophers and utilitarian J.C. Smart. The Masi argues that when we draw conceptual distinctions between one thing and another, we should form our distinctions in a part of one basis of which distinctions most promote the benefit of all. Similarly, they argued that we should reject fatalism and the idea that the future is predestined and there is nothing that a human agents can do to change it on account of deteriorative effects on human motivation. Here's the works of Masi, 3rd century BCE. Stanford, philosophy, to my Masi and all that, promote quotes. Yeah, these are utilitarian thinkers. He's one of the ones I had to read. Jeremy Bentham deals with numbers. I read about him with the utilitarianism. There's no need. John Stuart Mill, another one. He deals with the quality utilitarianism. There's no need for him. He deals with numbers. He deals with quality. That's the difference between them two. They're both British utilitarian philosophers. Let's go with Harriet Taylor Mill. Harriet Taylor Mill. That could be his sister. I don't know. It could be his sister. I thought it was his daughter. It could be his sister because I said something earlier. Was a British philosopher and women's rights advocate, a close friend, later wife. Oh, that's his wife. My fault. That's his wife. Okay, her name is Harriet Taylor Mill. That's his wife. My fault. I didn't know she was a philosopher as well. So two philosophers. That makes sense now. Close friend, later wife of John Stuart Mill. She had a profound impact on his thinking, work, in close collaboration with him. Despite her many contributions in the books and magazines, and most of her writing was only published under her own name after her death. We're going to read this in a bit. I'm going to see who's in the chat. Oh, nobody's in here? Okay, great. I know people don't really care, but that's okay. This ain't going to be a long one. Because I ain't going to put up a panel today. I got one. I'm going to change the time for a minute. Okay. Harriet Taylor Mill was born in 1807 in Walworth, South London. As the daughter of a midwife, she was educated at home and became interested in poetry and writing at a young age. She married John Taylor, a pharmacist, at age 18, even before she met John Stuart Mill. She was writing extensively on topics such as women's rights, particularly in marriage, domestic violence, and education, politics and ethics, religious toleration. At the same time, she was a mother to 3 children. Harriet Taylor met John Stuart Mill in 1831 at dinner, but the two formed a close friendship, intellectual partnership over the next 20 years, and their relationship soon became romantic, and they eventually married in 1851, 2 years after the death of her husband. But the former of their marriage reflect their part of deep commitment to equality. Stuart Mill dismissed in the writing of any legal rights he would acquire over her. They continued to collaborate until Taylor Mill died in 1858 of respiratory failure. Okay, respiratory failure. To this day, there exists a large amount of debate over the extent of Harriet Taylor Mill's collaboration with John Stuart Mill. Despite the Stuart Mill's praise, he once wrote to her that the better half of all the work is yours. Many of her contemporaries, more recent historians, dismissed her abilities, among other things. She has been branded a philosopher in petticoats, a female autocrat, and domineering, perverse and selfishness, invalid woman. However, it is certain that Taylor Mill, as well as being a formidable thinker in her own right, contributed significantly to John Stuart Mill's thought, who systemized her insights into utilitarian framework. For example, she wrote one of the chapter of Mill's Principles of Political Economy on the importance of education to the working class, the future of socialism, and is credit for highlighting to the Mill and then the crucial distinction between the production and distribution of wealth. The distinction often glossed over contemporary economists. Let's see what's going on. Let's read. Okay, where I left that. Distribution of wealth, the things gloss over contemporary economists and contribute to Stuart Mill's own growing political radicalism. Stuart Mill referring to on the liberty, radical utilitarian defense of individuality and liberalism as a joint production of him and Harriet. Yeah, yeah, I said that. Okay, Taylor Mill is the most famous, however, for her views on women's rights, expressing in her 1851 essay, The Enfranchisement of Women, and developed further in Stuart Mill's. Yeah, see, she was a women's right activist, but she kind of helped the man in utilitarianism, which is interesting. For example, she argued that paid work and all that. Yeah. Yeah, this is his wife. I'm not going to go into it. You can look this up. Yeah, this is like she has her own extension, but they deal with quality, the qualitative utilitarianism. Now, the ones is masculine, that would be like Jeremy B. He deals with numbers. Um, it's different levels of it. You know, everybody has their own. But I haven't read this guy, Henry Sidgwick. He's a British philosopher, an economist, and this is kind of what you want to get into. Still 19th century to the 20th century. Sidgwick was born in 1838 to the wealthy family in Yorkshire, England. He studied in Cambridge as an undergraduate, where he stayed for the rest of his life. While he is best known as a moral philosopher, he was also a political economist, epistemologist, classicist, theologist, educator, political theorist, and parapsychologist studying psychic phenomena, including telepathy, and survival after death. That's Henry Sidgwick. He's a utilitarian philosopher. Okay. At Cambridge, Sidgwick became a part of the Apostles' secret society, whose members discussed topics including ethics, truth, and God. He married Eleanor Mildred Balfour, a scientist with whom he advocated to expand higher education for women and conducted parapsychological research. Yeah, psychological research. Okay. Sedgwick is best known for the writing Methods of Ethics, an overview of utilitarianism and its historical alternatives and their relations to ordinary moral reasoning. According to John Rawls, Sedgwick's method of ethics is the clearest and the most accessible formulation of the classical utilitarian doctrine. According to J.J.C. Smart, it's the best book written on ethics. Not only was the value of formulation justification of classical utilitarianism, it is also proved to be a model for the study of ethics, and more generally, the book can be seen partly as an exposition, a systemization, and correction of common sense morality. In it, Sedgwick outlined three approaches to ethics: institutionalism, egoism, and utilitarianism, attempt to reconcile them with each other, while he doubted that egoism and utilitarianism could be reconciled, and what he termed the dualism of practice reasons. He argued that fundamental utilitarian axioms and intuitionism could be. This insight proved vital in the polarization of utilitarianism in the 20th century. Sedgwick was also a committed social reformer. His primary interest was the expansion of women's higher education, but he founded Newham College in Cambridge. For this purpose, he supported the secularization of education and temporarily resigned from his fellow at the Cambridge University in 1869, when he could no longer subscribe to the 3090 Articles of the Church of England. He also supported poor relief and as a political economist and challenged the doctrine of laissez-faire. This is like a little ideology that I want to get, and that was it. He's a philosopher, and somebody's likes works. You can check him out. He's popular. Then we got this animal lover, Peter Singer. He's still alive. He's born at 1946. Technically he's a boomer. A lot of people think he's a boomer. He's a boomer. He's born in 46. Yeah, he's a boomer. Peter Singer's a boomer. He's an Australian moral philosopher, professor of bioethics at Princeton University. His work concentrates on issues of applied ethics, treatment of animals. We just mentioned that he's an animal lover, and the ethics of global poverty and effective altruism. The publications of his book in 1975 took the animal liberation, helped started the modern animal rights movement. This is Peter Singer. Peter Singer is a utilitarian philosopher, by the way. I read some of his stuff in my earliest videos, and yeah, he's a Austrian Jewish family. Yeah, he's a so-called Jew. Well, actually, I ain't gonna say that Jew. I'm gonna say Edomite. He's a Edomite. Yeah, according to our Hebrew stuff, he's a Edomite. With the pap on his head, but we ain't gonna get into that. Yeah, I just read that. Okay. In 1999, Singer was appointed as a professor of bioethics in the University Center for Human Values at the Princeton. In 2004, he was recognized as an Australian Humanist of the Year by the Council of Australian Humanist Societies. He founded the nonprofit organization The Life You Can Save, named after his book, the same name, and is often regarded as a core intellectual Okay, did I say intellectual inspiration to the effective altruism movement? The Singer is the most famous and influential contemporary utilitarian philosopher. Yeah, I know it's 2:55 right now. We're going to talk about it. We're going to read Singer a little bit. He's best known for his views on animal ethics. In his book Animal Liberation, he polarized the term speciesism, which he defines as a prejudice or attitude of bias in favor of the interests of members of one's own species against those of the members of other species. He argues for the equal consideration of human and non-human animal interests because animals have the capacity for suffering and enjoyment. He rejects the idea that non-human animals' interests should be considered less based on their intelligence. With argument from marginal cases, if we should consider the interests infants, the cognitively disabled, the senile, equally to the interests of the average human, we should also consider the interests of non-human animals equally. For these is no relevant property, but these humans have that non-human animals lack. Consequently, Singer has a long advocate for reducing the suffering of farmed animals. I read that earlier in another article. Utilitarian defined. I'm gonna knock it off. I'm gonna put this up. Hold on. I'm gonna put this up right here. You know, and then suffering of animals like consequently. Okay. Okay. Singer also campaigned against global poverty. In 1972, he wrote a Wiley City article titled Famine, Affluence, and Morality, which he introduced the famous drowning child. Though the experiment, but the principle underlying it is that one can save a life sacrificing nothing of moral significance. One has an obligation to do so. The implication of this principle is that people in the rich countries have an obligation to give up at least some of their income to help the poor. Insofar as if it's possible, Singer also argued that the affluent nations ought to make much stronger actions on climate change and has argued in favor of legalization of abortion, the legality of euthanasia, euthanasia or something like that. Okay. Yeah, that's what it says. And this is his little stuff right here. You can find out. Yeah, he's an animal lover, but he's a utilitarian. These are utilitarian thinkers I just read. Not much on them. Like I read Henry and Peter and Harriet. I already know the other two. And Massey. I read Massey. So yeah, I mean the glossary and not much. Not much. It's their deontology. They got that in here. Okay. Hedonism, hedonic calculus. Oh, it's a form of all that. Most people like to conflate the two. Wow. Let's read classic. Classic utilitarianism is the ethical theory on which states the rightness of actions or rules, policies depends on and only on the sum of total happiness or over suffering they produce. Classical utilitarianism can be distinguished from the wider utilitarian family of views because it accepts hedonism as a theory of welfare and a total view of population ethics. Yeah, it's very hedonistic. I talked about it in most of my stuff. So yeah, this is utilitarian.net. You can see this stuff, and I'm just gonna put this out here. Yeah, man. Yeah, this is a site that I'm just like, broadcasting. I know it's 45 minutes in, so what's going on, Doug? Appreciate you stopping by. Salute. And I'm just putting this out here. And yeah, man, this ain't nothing new. I'm trying to put this out here. One last time. One last time. Because I think, covering this is a good piece. So, I'm just gonna just wait on some things, but I'm just gonna put this in my chat. Oh, cool, cool, cool. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, I got some pieces. I think I'm gonna read again. Let's go with the glossary again. I'm gonna read something because I hear this a lot with one individual. He said he's a utilitarian. Let's deal with calculus for a minute. Okay, Jeremy B proposed the hedonic calculus or phephilic calculus as a method to determine the goodness and badness of an action consequences. Betham suggests that in assessing these consequences, one should take into account that their intensity of duration, certainty, precunity, of fecundity, the chances that the pleasure is followed by other ones. A pain by further pains, purity, the chance that pleasure is followed by pains and vice versa, an extent. But the number of persons affected, applying to the hedonic calculus to similarly asses of all the alternative actions, which shows which one has the best overall consequences and should therefore be chosen. Am I correct? However, Bethan was a realistic about the limitations of this method, writing it that it is not to be expected that is the process of calculating expected consequences and should be strictly pursued previously to every moral judgment. That is hedonic calculus. Okay. I don't know what y'all expect. And I'm just looking at it right now, so you know how that goes. And yeah, man, I'm just gonna look at this for a minute and I ain't gonna drop the link just yet. So that's just part of it, of utilitarianism and all that. This may be I don't know if this is gonna show. Let's read the welfare theory. I don't see how much time I got. Okay, it's 48 minutes and 28 seconds. It's a long one. This may be a short stream. I may go an hour on this one. Okay, I'm still talking, so I'm keep it going. Main article of hedonism, theories of welfare. Hedonism is the view that the well-being consists in only it. Yep, I read this already. Let's look at the hedonistic concept and for themselves experience. Okay, positive. Yeah, I talked about that. Okay, let's look at the concepts of happiness as abroad. It covers not only a only a paradynamic instance of essential pleasures such as the experience of eating delicious food or having sex, but also other positively Vlance experiences such as the experience of solving a problem, reading a novel, or helping a friend. He did his claim that all of these experiences are intrinsically valuable, which means they are valuable in and all of themselves. Other goods such as welfare and health, justice, fairness, and equality are also valued by classical utilitarianism, but they are valued instrumentally This means they are valued to the extent that they have an effect to the conscious of experience of individuals rather than being valued in of themselves. But the two main alternatives of hedonism are desire theories, according to which only the satisfaction of desires or preferences matters for an individual's well-being. Objective list theories, which propose a list of items that constitute well-being. This is the list can only include conscious experience, or satisfy preferences, but it rarely stops there. Ethics, ethicists, ethics, something like that. Yeah, ethicists commonly argue that the objective list, including art, knowledge, love, friendship, and more. Okay, so this is part of it, and that's basically it. And so, you got the impartially individuals, species, and indirect. Let's look at this indirect and indirect utilitarianism. I'm just going to read this off. Main article: consequentialism. I did a piece on that, a video, I will say pre-recorded. According to indirect consequentialism, we should evaluate the moral status of an action, rule, policy, etc., indirectly based on its relationship to something else, such as rule, whose status itself assesses in terms of consequences. But the most well-known indirect consequentialist view is rule utilitarianism, which holds that what makes an action right is that what it conforms to the set of rules that would have the best utilitarian consequences if they were generally accepted or followed. But the main alternative to indirect consequentialism is direct consequentialism, according to which the rightness of action or rule or policies, etc., depends on only its consequences. Yeah, that's right. So, maximum utilitarianism equals total utilitarianism. So we're talking about the maximum numbers now. Maximum utilitarianism is a view within any set of options. The actions of produce the most well-being is right. All others actions are wrong. Maximizing utilitarianism seems to misrepresent the utilitarian's core concern. To see this, suppose that Sophie could save no one or save 999 people at the great personal sacrifice, or save 1,000. I mentioned this before in my previous utilitarian videos that are self pre-record. At the even the greatest personal sacrifice from a utilitarian. Okay. Oh, I'm skipped over. My fault. Have saved over 999 people at the great personal sacrifice, or saved 1,000 at the greater. Oh, I read that. Okay. And from a utilitarian perspective, the most important thing is that Sophie either saves the 999 people or the 1,000 rather than do nothing. The difference between Sophia saving 999 and 1,000 is comparatively small. However, on the maximum form of utilitarianism, both saving no one, saving the 999 people would simply be labeled as wrong. Yeah. That's what it says on parentheses. But the main alternatives to maximizing utilitarianism, including scholar utilitarianism, according to which rightness and wrongness are matters of degree. Satisfying utilitarianism, which holds that within any sets of options, an action is right if it produces enough well-being. See, that's like the total. If you maximize it, and then you got the long-termism. So yeah, man. Let's see. I done went long enough. Yeah, man. I'm just looking at the glossary right now. I saw that. But yeah, man. Oh shit. I didn't mean to hit that. Let's see that. I'm going to stop the screen share. I'll be right back, y'all. Something messed up my link. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Let's see what I did here. Because sometimes these links be jumpy. And let's see here. Let's go put this down real quick. I'm gonna put this down. Check my live chat for a minute. Okay. I'm gonna put this, pin it. Yeah. Let me see. Let me go back to screen share. Someone wants to jump up for a minute. Yeah, I was in the glossary. Hold on. I want to share the screen again. Okay. That's about it. This is a piece of it. I mean, the preference of utilitarianism, I can go in. This is a glossary, you know. I done covered the rest earlier. So, I can go in if you want me to. But yeah, I just want to knock this stream out and just covered everything in its entirety, and appreciate y'all stopping by. Go P, New, and Doug. But I can extend this a little longer. It's 50 something minutes. But yeah, man, I just want to talk about it, man. It's one last time, man, in the chamber. This one is just something I just want to put up. I found some certain links about it. In case y'all want to know, this is the ending of the series of it. Once again, one last time, because I found the link while I was talking in the live stream. I'm going to do another one about celebrity downfall in society. Talks about, social media and things like that. I'm going to come off the dome of that. I'm going to talk about everything that's going on in the world and the internet and the real, the real world, what most people would say. This is a topic that I want to discuss on that. That's another stream, but I don't know if I'm going to push it back, but we'll see. But this one is kind of, something I want to get out the way. I'm probably gonna push it back because I don't know, because this may be a short stream. We're gonna see how this is gonna be, because I don't know if I get this down. So when I said the downfall, let me edit this real quick, because since it's gonna be at 8, let's see, 8:15. Save this for a minute. Yeah, because I can do that, because I ain't gonna be in no rush, because I don't know who's gonna come up here. If not, I'll push it back up, because I'm just saying. But yeah, I can keep going or whatever. Let me switch the pick. Okay. I know people's in here. Appreciate you guys for coming by, man. Yeah, this is just one last time. Yeah, I'm talking about utilitarianism, but I'm just getting into the meat of it. I might have to put this on. Yeah, let's look at here, right here. I'm gonna go preference. Okay. Let's see what we got here. The egalitarian, yeah. Effective altruism. Here we go. I want something like this. Those are the effective altruism movement to try to figure out if all the different uses of resources, which one will do the most good, and partially considered and act on the basis. So define effective altruism is both a research project to figure out how to do the most good and practical project to implement the best guesses and we have about how to do the most good. Yep, that's a form of utilitarianism again. Yeah, done it again. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like I want to cover, but yeah, yeah. This is what I kind of like to cover. Um, I'm just gonna get this out the way because I know people are not coming up. That's great. It's just a link if y'all want to come up. But yeah, I just want to discuss utilitarianism once again. And as the utilitarianism.net, appreciate the links that I have. And I'm just going to knock this off. That's all I'm talking about. Yes, it's still philosophical. Um, I was reading. Okay, let me get this down here. Share screen. If y'all want any of it, you can look at the philosophy branch. It has everything in here. I'm gonna put this in here. I'm gonna put this in the chat as well. Let's see. I'm gonna copy as well if you want a link to that. If y'all are interested in it. Um, let's see. Let's paste it. There we go. That's a link to y'all. If y'all want to research it or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, I appreciate the people that came through. Yeah, this is gonna be a short one. Um, I'm going to have to, let's say, I'm going to end this stream. I know people's not going to come up because I know people are not interested in this topic, and I appreciate y'all coming through, man. We're gonna go knock this out. Save changes. Yeah, I'm gonna stop screen share. Yeah, I'm just gonna give you that link, and I'm gonna go like this. Okay. So with that, I want to appreciate Doug coming by, New coming by, Go P. Shout out to you, brothers, and the people in the clouds. So with that, I want to say peace and shalom.